Austin home prices are coming down, yet property taxes are going up. Got a lot to cover in this video. Jeremy Knight, the Knight Group, your favorite Austin realtor. So the Austin housing stats just came out. So we're gonna go through what is actually happening in the market. We're gonna go through and talk about what builders are facing. We're gonna talk about what buyers and sellers are also facing in this market, because I don't know if you've heard this, but there was a whole commissions lawsuit that just kind of went into effect, and so it is impacting buyers and sellers, and we'll talk about that. I did do a full video about it recently, so you can find it there as well. And I will link a full video below. Sharon Srivatsa, the president of Real Broker, actually put out a full video that you can actually go watch to see how it breaks down for you, both you as a seller and a buyer, and what it all means. So I'll put that there as well. Let's get started on the Austin housing numbers though, because everyone looks to the Austin market and says, Austin's crashing, and then the city of Austin comes out with their budget and goes from $5.5 billion to $5.9 billion. In fact, they are going to be asking you, the voter, in November for more money on top of that, because there's a shortfall in the schools. And why is there a shortfall in the schools? Well, you have a lot of kids not going to the AISD schools anymore, but electing to go to private schools and charter schools. And so Austin's losing money. So they're going to be asking you in the next ballot, what do you think about that? Should we be raising? One thing that's interesting about and I want to talk about the budget and that later, but one thing that's really interesting is how recapture works. And so they're putting a bond together, a vote to raise taxes. And so they're going to raise $171 million in taxes. They need I think it's 55 or 60 million. Only 40 of that million of that, it's actually going to go to Austin. The rest of it goes to recapture and goes to other areas. So Austin, again, is asking you to raise your taxes to then give it to other people outside of Austin, or other school districts out of Austin. So just curious how you feel about that. And how do you feel about the budget going from 5.5 billion to 5.9 billion when things are getting more expensive and harder for homeowners? Because let's be honest, that 5.9 billion comes from property tax, which means it comes from you, the homeowner, and the business owner. So let's talk about the Austin MSA numbers. So the Austin MSA numbers were actually flat month over month. They ended up at 450,000. It was 450,000 the month before. But if you look at the Austin numbers, the MSA, which covers all the way up to all the way down to San Marcos, Bastrop, Williamson County, Hayes County, Travis County, all of the counties around Austin, 450,000 was flat month over month. Yet, if you go back to the peak of 22, it's down from 515,000 all the way down to 450,000, and it is behind last year. Last year we were at $462,000. So does that mean that the Austin market's going to keep crashing even further? We'll go through that and talk about it. But if you do look at this chart, November does dip down to 425. So let's say we don't see prices drop too much further down. You could see a month over month or a year over year increase around the November timeframe. But you tell me your price is going to drop. One reason why prices might continue to drop, the active inventory is at 5.1 months of inventory, which means that if we weren't to list another home, it would take 5.1 months for all of the homes currently on the market to sell. Look, overall sales were down year over year and month over month. Closed sales were at 2,650 really. And so that's actually down. So that's what's pushing it down. But inventory dropped a little bit, which is interesting, because if months of inventory goes up and inventory comes down, you'd expect months of inventory to come down as well. Regardless, a lot of it has to do with people starting to pull their homes off the market. So a lot of homeowners are leasing at the same time as they are putting up for sale. So some of that, you're seeing sellers pull their homes off the market, trying to list next year to hopefully get more money. So that tells you that beginning of next year, you're probably going to see a lot of homes hit the market again, right? So they were on the market for 2-3 months, 4 or 5 months now, and then they're going to go back on the market. So overall, the MSA numbers, we're month over month flat. But if we look at the Austin numbers, as far as just Austin, you saw inventory drop again. So inventory came down a little bit. Sales were up month over month in Austin. So you did see sales go up, but sales year over year were way down. 2023 was more sales. Remember I did a whole video about realtors leaving the industry, and we talked about the real estate commission's lawsuit, and we talked about realtors being just burnt out. Well, you know, less sales is part of the key too of why they're leaving. And so we're down 10%. So I'd imagine you're going to see 10% of realtors out. What do you think? You're going to see a lot more realtors, you tell me. Pending sales was down a little bit as well. But the overall median for the city of Austin fell 3 months in a row. So it peaked back in May, and it is down to 583,000 in July. Now, if you look at this, the same thing as the Austin MSA area, you see prices kind of drop this time of year and then flatten out the rest of the year. So the question is, are home prices going to flatten out? And this is where things get interesting because the Fed is meeting this Friday. Now, depending on what's coming out of the meeting, we could see a 0.5 point interest rate drop in September.
The direction of travel is clear, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. With an appropriate dialing back of policy restraint, there is good reason to think that the economy will get back to 2% inflation while maintaining a strong labor market.
Now, this is what a lot of people are trying to figure out. Is it going to be a 1/4 point, a 0.5 point? A lot of it depends on the jobs. The job, you know, what happens is they put out the job numbers and then they get revised. And when they get revised lower, then you see everything freak out a little bit more. So unemployment rate in the Austin area is at 3.8 months. That is the highest it's been in a long time. And then in the overall jobs in the economy, we're at 4.2 months of unemployment. So unemployment's going up. So we could actually see the Fed do a 0.5 point rate drop. Now, does that mean there's going to be a lot more buyers in the market? It could mean that, because I know a lot of buyers that I talk to are waiting for rates to drop. Tell me in the comment section if you are waiting for rates to drop, because that is what I'm seeing with a lot of buyers. And then now what I'm seeing with sellers in this market is they're starting to do what these builders are doing. Now look at the builders. The builder confidence is down to 39. So the builders put out this like random like survey of how they're feeling about the market. Above 50 is, you know, positive, below 50 is negative. So home builders are at 39 right now. So it's way, 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 way low. Builders are also having to give more incentives in order to actually get buyers in there. I know Eileen just negotiated. So the builder had like, here's what we're giving on a to-be built that a client's doing. She got more off the lot. She got more in upgrades and more for them. And this was just this week. They called her literally Friday afternoon and said, we're in town only for a couple of days. Can we go look at some of these properties in this neighborhood? And she got them even more than what they were wanting on Saturday. So this is just an example of what happens with sometimes. Please don't like call us like Friday and say, hey, I want to look at homes on Saturday, because according to the commission lawsuit, you can't do that anymore. And we'll get to the commission lawsuit and how that's affecting buyers and sellers here in a second. And 33% of home builders had to slash their prices in order to get more purchases. So that's up from 31% in July. So you are seeing builders having to give more incentives to actually get people in there. Even the uneducated economist recently said, who's actually a friend of the channel, home prices for builders aren't necessarily going to come down, because what we're seeing is home builders are slowing down builds. So new starts is down. And then you have the lumber costs. The lumber costs are the lowest they've been, but you have these lumber distributors that are actually curtailing how much they're putting out. They're artificially making prices higher by completing less wood and putting less wood out there. So it's pretty interesting that we're seeing that in the market. The other thing is the inflation rate is still at 2.9% in the market. Now, I know a lot of people were cheering about that. I actually made a video about that, saying how stupid it is to pat yourself on the back with that. But inflation's at 2.9. That's not even the target. The target is 2%. So we're actually still higher, 50% higher for inflation. The way I equated that is if a plumber were to come in and break a pipe in your house, right, and spill water in your house, and then you got that plumber to turn the water off, but a little bit was still coming in. Well, the plumber going, I fixed the problem, I fixed the problem. No, you created the problem, and then you filled my house up with water, which is a new problem, and the water's still not all the way off. That is exactly what's happening right now. Is inflation is still like prices aren't coming down, right? All of the common goods that when you buy a home, all the common things, the lighting, the electricity, the water, everything is more expensive. And that's going to what's happening with the budget for the Austin area, right? So Austin raised their budget to almost $6 billion. And this is where home buyers and homeowners are going to see a lot of stress. This is actually going to average out to about another $400 a year in spending for most people. So they gave a little bit more money back to the police unions. They gave $4 million more to the homeless situation. They called it an investment, but usually, maybe I'm dumb, but usually when I think about investing money, that money like is a return. This is just giving money, trying to solve the homeless situation, but not fixing the homeless situation. So I don't know, camera guy's looking at me funny because he doesn't get it either. So I don't know how it's an investment. There's a lot of other things. They raised the minimum wage. They raised the wages for employees for the city. There's a lot of things that they put into this bill. Now there's only one person that voted against it, but they're going from 5.5 billion to 5.9 billion, and it is going to cost you, the average homeowner, about $400 more a year. The city energy has gone up, the water price has gone up as well. So you're seeing a lot of increases in the overall budget. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about the budget? But let's get into, I know I've gone over a lot of things in here, but let's get into the commission lawsuit. So what I'm seeing with a lot of buyers right now is they think that they are now going to have to go straight to the listing agent and go straight to the listing agent because they don't want to pay for a buyer agent. Basically, let's equate it to this, right? And it's, I haven't seen it too much yet, but I have seen sellers trying to pull back on how much they are offering. And so it's been a little iffy and a little, it just depends on where you are. But imagine this. Imagine you were going to go have surgery, right? And you go, and this is the way it used to work. You'd go in and the insurance would go, yeah, we're going to cover the surgery. Now when you go in to go have that surgery, they go, look, we are not going to cover all of the insurance. In fact, your insurance is maybe only going to cover one third, and you have to cover the other 2/3. And so you go, you know what? I'm just going to go directly to the doctor myself and do that cash out of pocket thing, right? And so I'm just going to go straight to the doctor myself. Well, here's the thing about real estate and why I think it's really important to have a buyer's agent represent you. The buyer's agent makes all the other stuff happen besides the actual sales. I know people think that buyer's agents don't do a lot, but they do a ton. Besides negotiating, getting you ready, making sure that the seller has their head on straight, making sure you have your head on straight, and making sure you close that home the right way. Because the biggest thing that I see in a lot of these issues, and I'll give you a prime example. I recently had a seller that wanted to list a home for $430,000. I told them, no way is this going to sell for $430,000 because there are comps for $350,000. And they told me, Jeremy, this house is worth $430,000. I put in linoleum floors. I touched up painted. I did all these little things to get the house ready. And so the house is worth $430,000. Well, after about 100 days on market and me continuing to show them the comps that we needed to be under $350,000, I got them down about $390,000. Now, we walked away from each other because they just would not come down any further and they wouldn't listen to the comps. Well, they hired another realtor. Guess what happened with that realtor? They started at $375, down to $350, down to $325, down to $300. They ultimately sold that home for $259,000. Okay, had that seller listened to me from the beginning and allowed me to list that price at that house at $350,000, a good chance we would have got them a lot more money. And so it's the same thing you as a buyer or a seller. It really does work to have an agent who understands the prices, understands how things work, because that saves you from having to do all those things yourself that you could potentially do wrong. Yes, it's true. You don't need a real estate agent. But guess what? The title company is not going to tell you what to do, and you go hire a lawyer, the lawyer is not going to tell you what to do. So these are all the things that are happening in the Austin area. I know I went off on a side tangent, but what do you think about the Austin market? I think it is actually, and this is the sleazy realtor, right? I'm the sleazy realtor. I think it's actually over the next few months is going to probably be one of the best times to buy. If interest rates do come down, the amount of inventory that's out there, we are negotiating deals for buyers well below. In fact, prices for homes right now are selling about 95% of list price. It's based on the MLS. But we're negotiating more than that. So we want to make sure that if you are going to be buying a home in the next 6 months, that you're getting a really good deal. And I have on this channel have always told you the last half of the year is always the best time to buy a home because prices are coming down, buyers are leaving the market. Now, if we see interest rates start to go up into the beginning of next year and they drop a lot, you can see a lot more people in the market pushing prices back up. But you tell me. See you in the next video.